And I'm going to lock that seat. So it's just you and me. So thank you so much, Bridgette, for being here. I'm going to, let's see, take a breath. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming to Tinseltown tonight. Tinseltown with Ms. Meliz and my special guest, Bridgette Alexander. She's joining us from Chicago, and she's an author and has a new book out right now called Southern Gothic. Currently, I'm reading it because she was nice enough to send me a copy, and she signed it, which is very sweet, and I'm just so happy that she's here. Thank you so much for being here, Bridgette. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Thank you so much for having me. This is very exciting. Hello, everybody.
Well, say hello. Hello there, Bridgette. So you've got a chance to get to know Blab a little bit, and I know you're brand new to it. I'm celebrating about 360 days here on Blab. I was one of the original Blabbers, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful experience. But, so we're trying some other new things because there's a lot of other options, but this is still my favorite. So I'm really glad that you're here. I hope you find it a fun place to visit and come back often. I'm here every night.
Well, I like it. I've never been on Blab before, but I really love the interaction in it and being able to talk to you and see you and the other two people that were on also, and to see all of these people. I think it's amazing.
It's really fun. I love to do interviews with a basically a live audience. They're able to interact and ask questions and join us to ask questions, and I'll give them the opportunity if anybody wants to join us.
Wow.
They can come on and we'll talk. But now I just want to get to know you. This is the first time we're meeting face to face. When I read a book like Southern Gothic, the first thing I do, is read all of the stuff on the site. I have never read anything by you before, so I was just reading, and I found so much about you. I didn't, shocking to everybody who knows me and has been on the show before, I didn't require Bridgette to fill out the form. I don't know if Susan even forwarded the form to you, but that's usually how I do a little discovery about my guests. But she set it all up, and I felt like I didn't need to do it. But so I really came in only knowing what I know from this book and from your profile on Twitter. Tell me about yourself.
Well, I guess one of the first things I always think about myself, I'm an art historian, and I focused on 19th century French art history and during the Second Empire. So this is from the years of 1865 to 1872. And I just absolutely love that time period. So like if I could ever go back in time and live, that would be the time period. And that would be the place where I would go and live during that time. So I really love it. I love museums. I'm a real geek in that respect because I love hanging out at museums and libraries and in archives and reading about history and just sort of immersing myself in it. I think if I could think of one way to describe myself, that's how I would describe me.
So that's your passion, is art history, and that's a very small window of time, isn't it? What happened in that time that made such an impact on you?
That's the time when Paris became Paris. So Paris as a city was formed. So you had this the city planner that came in, Wiesmann, who reconstructed the city of Paris to be more like the way we know now, like in this sort of snail kind of format that it has, where it sort of spirals out into all of these different neighborhoods. So that was one thing. Politics and particularly politics where the politician becomes larger than life. That was one of the first things that was started during that same time period. So the Emperor Napoleon III and the Empress Eugenie were very much, in my opinion, like Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton.
Oh, wow.
From the 90s.
There's your next book, right?
Right. It's also a time when haute couture was invented, department stores, everything that we know today of what makes an urban environment, that began to happen in the 90s. That's the first time it happened in the 19th century. Women working, female artist models were the most successful labor group in Paris during that time. They had a union, people wrote about them. Over 60% of women were working as artist models. I mean, that's almost it's unprecedented. Because prior to that, women weren't working. They might have been working, but they may have not been making enough money to where they could actually take care of themselves and live on their own. And in that period of time, that's the first time when you start to see that happen.
So interesting. How are you drawn to this? Like, how are you first exposed to this art and history and Paris?
Could you say that again?
Sorry. How were you first exposed to this art history?
I was first exposed from my grandparents. They used to take me to art museums here in Chicago when I was like 4, 5, and 6. So, I went to public schools here in Chicago. So you'd go to you have a field trip to the Art Institute of Chicago. And that we usually have them, like back in the 70s, we had them twice a year, once in fall, and then you had it again in spring, maybe a few weeks before school was out for the summer. But in between that time, and certainly in the summer, my grandparents would take me to the museum all the time. Mm-hmm. And we would just go through, absolutely every gallery, from the Renaissance period to Pablo Picasso, and just showing me each one of the paintings and talking about them. And so it's because of that experience where I just really started feeling like, I just always felt at home at a museum. But the biggest reason why is because they constantly told me that this is for you. This is it's sitting here in the city. Our taxpayer dollars are paying for it, for the general operating costs. And it's open to the public. And this is for you to learn and to be a part of this larger world that is displaying on the walls. And so because of that, it always made, I was always there. No matter what city I go to, one of the first places I always visit are the art museums. And then even natural history museums.
That's awesome. Now, have you spent very much time in Los Angeles going to museums here?
I've been to the Getty, which I love. I did a project with the MoCA back in 2009. If I'm
for anyone from Los Angeles, that's the Museum of Contemporary Art, MoCA.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, the Museum of Contemporary Art. I have not gone to the LACMA. So this trip that I'm taking to Los Angeles tomorrow, and I'll be in LA until next Thursday. I'm going to go to the LACMA, the LA Museum of Art.
Yeah, Contemporary Museum of Art. I'm actually going to be next door to LACMA tomorrow at the Liberace Carpet. That's where
that's not right. That's right. I've been there. I've been to the Liberace Carpet.
So that's where the event for Ice Age is going to be there, and I get to have my picture taken with an animatronic saber-tooth. Very exciting. Now, Dennis will pop out from behind. I'll be really happy, but I don't think he's going to be there. So, we can't hear either of us. Sandra Centurino, thank you for being here. I'm going to refresh and pause the recording. So I'm really happy that you're coming to LA, and I hope that we can meet up a little bit while you're here, at least at the
I hope so
Handel.
too.
Yeah. So, but so tell me, is this your first novel? Your first published novel? Is this your first published work?
It is. Yeah, it's the first work of fiction that I've had published. This is the first book in young adult art mystery series. So there will be a number of other books to come. The next book will be coming out next spring, and that one is called Sons of Liberty. But Southern Gothic is the first one.
Yeah. You know, I was just having a conversation with Cindy about having the first in a series or having the first annual, you know. It's a lot of pressure to make sure that you have that next one. But it's, tell me about your journey.
I have to tell you. So I was rejected by agents like 45 times.
Wow.
This is what happened. Every time I got rejected, I thought, oh, I only got rejected because I only have one book. I need to work on a second book. Then I got rejected again because I only have 2 books. I need 3 books. Then I got rejected again and again and again. Then I had a total of like 5 books. And then I thought, oh, you know why no one's picking this up? Because if I could create a treatment and a Bible for a television series.
I'm going to stop you there. Hold that thought.
Oh. Okay.
To me, so go ahead with your story. you were saying that you got to 3 books.
Right. So each time when I got rejected, I kept thinking, oh, it's just because I don't have enough books. I need to have a series, and I need to make them, each of the books, I should make them a standalone. And then when I was like up to like working on book number 5 and was still getting rejected, I thought, oh, I just need to create a television series. I have to create a platform. So I wrote I kept down, that's it. So I wrote a Bible, I wrote a treatment, I wrote episode summaries. And so, by the end of it all, and once I did finally get it published, there's just something about when I'm doing something, I will just simply stick with it until it actually happens. And I never think like, oh, I'm just going to give up. My thoughts have always been the only way this cannot succeed, or the only way I cannot reach my goal, I just have to stop. And if I never stop, then I'll reach my goal.
That is so inspiring. What you just said right there, just, it's amazing. I can't wait to go back and write it out because that's why I love that. I only interview the superstars, the people who are rocking the attitude and the spirit that it takes to get someplace, and you are living it, enjoying it, and it's such a great example. And I'm so glad that you said that, because it's all about perseverance and believing in yourself. And you're doing it. I mean, Look at this. This is beautiful. This is great. So, how did you end up finally getting a publisher?
Well, you know what? I thought I decided so I started meeting people that went through smaller publishing houses here in Chicago. Then I met people that even self-published. And so I thought, well, maybe I could just self-publish. And then I thought, well, if I'm going to self-publish, I should probably try to get make it into a publishing house. So I then got on the phone, started contacting Goldman Sachs, and got funding to start a business, and put together Paris 1865 Press and a larger parent company called Late Bloom Productions, because I am like the poster child of a late bloomer.
Well, you said, I think we're the same age, because you said you went to school at the Grateful 70s?
Yeah. I'm 51.
Okay.
I'm 51.
Okay. I'm 40.
So,
I'm 48. So very close. That's why we could
yeah.
connect so well. Yeah. We're from the same era, right?
Right. We're from the same era.
Yeah.
And so I started doing that, and I then contacted the book designers. They're in they're in the Bay Area. They design book covers and book interiors, and they do it for. Isn't it? I mean, what they did is amazing. It's just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous.
About it, it's just so I'm so jealous. I love it. I self-published a book and I designed everything myself using free stuff online. So it's really nice.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And so then I worked with them, and then my web designer, I met her, Denise Biondo. She's actually in Buffalo, New York. So I just put together the infrastructure that you would have in any given publishing house.
How long did that take you, Bridgette? Because I mean, the way you said, like, oh, I just put together my
no, it took a long time. It took me. It took like flippant about it. Like, oh, I just decided to do it, and then by 12 noon, I had a publisher. Right.
Hang out with not easy.
Right. It took me 6.5 years to do everything. And it was a long time, and it was a whole lot of, because, it's one thing to set out to do something and you really think, you don't think it's going to take you an extremely long time. You always assume, oh, this is just going to take a couple of months, or I'll have it all accomplished before this year is up. When it's 2 years, when it's 4.5 years, and you're telling your friends and people that your neighbors, they're like, how's the book coming along? Have you got it published? Or how's this coming along? And you're still saying, well, I'm working on it. It's coming. It takes a lot to be able to say that and then move away from that person, continue, on with whatever you're doing for that day and not beat yourself up and say, what is wrong with you? It's extremely hard to just keep pushing yourself and knowing that, okay, this is going to happen. I just have to keep my eye on the prize, because otherwise even if you give up, it doesn't mean that you're a failure. It's just really hard to know that there's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel, especially when there are no signposts telling you that there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
So true. Are you listening to this, Cindy? Because boy, we have some great ideas and we're pushing it. We want instant results. Like, how did you get over that rejection and that time that it took to build, and to get to this point? How did you do it? To give a lot of support?
Yeah. Part of it was that I stopped, it's hard I'll say this and I'll explain what I mean. So it's hard not to take rejection personally. It's really hard. But part of the reason why I was able to take it is because I had gone through graduate school at the University of Chicago, where you will work really hard on, like I did, on Edward Manet, who was the father of modern art. And, I spent all this time in Paris in an archive researching and studying. And then you meet with your advisors and you have this fantastic idea. You got all your ducks in a row, and your advisors will look at your proposal and just start ripping it apart. And they're doing this in front of you. So you don't have the benefit of someone merely sending you an email and just saying, it's not going to work with my list, I'm sorry. Or someone just simply ignoring it and just never responding to you at all. It is something else.
There has to be already in you to take that and use it constructively rather than just getting shot down. They just have to see yourself over here in the art history department at the museum,
because of that experience, when you working hard, my graduate advisor, I would spend literally hours. I'd get up 4:00 in the morning and I would start writing. And I wouldn't see her. For example, I would get up 4:00 in the morning on a Monday and I would work all day, writing, reading, researching, and I wouldn't see her until Thursday. Give her the first 10 pages of my thesis. And then that would happen on a Wednesday. I'd see her Thursday evening. She would look at it. She would have already read it. And I'm sitting across from her and she goes, "You're not ready yet. This isn't ready yet." And give it right back to you. So you have to go right back to the drawing board and just start all over again. So because of that really hardcore experience that I had, hearing, and I didn't like hearing an agent tell me, I don't like it. I don't like her. I don't like this main character. I'm not connecting with her. Some of them could be, some of the criticism or the rejection would be accompanied by some really harsh criticism. But I kept telling myself, you know what, just take this as a critique. So maybe you do need to work on this character a little bit. So I just went back, started reading more YA. You just have to keep pushing it, especially when you know in your heart and in your soul that this is really something that you want to do, that you want to share with the rest of the world. When you have that in you, because you're going to give something to people, right? It's not just so much as I'm going to write a book so I can be able to talk about it, or I can tell my friends I've written a book. I feel like I have something that I'm sharing a part of myself. And I want to open up doors and windows to everybody, to kids, to adults alike. So because that's how I felt, and I still do feel like that about it, when one person says, "I don't like it," that's totally fine, because guess what? There are like over 10 billion people in the world. And out of that 10 billion, at least somebody out there.
Let's talk about the characters. Celine Caldwell. Okay. So obviously there's a lot more where she goes. This is the first book, and I've only gotten through the first, 30 pages. But I already really like her. It's very intriguing. So how did you? I don't know what my question is really. Is that how did you decide to do an adult series and make it geared for young adults? Yes, that's my first question.
Because I know I thought about that a lot, and I always thought, I don't know. I think like the best time in my life was when I was a teenager. I mean, I totally love being an adult. I really do. But I sort of look at my adult life as just an extension of my, my teenage life, with the benefit that I can drive, I could have, a boyfriend, or I can have a husband, and I don't have to ask my parents' permission for that. I could go and live in another country if I want.
Yeah, I totally. Awesome. I work in middle school, so I'm with a lot of teenagers and young people, and my kids are young, 16, 19, and 21. And so, I love what they love, and that intrigues me.
Yeah.
Who inspired you, or what kinds of books did you like, that inspired you to write them?
Excuse me. I really, really loved Nancy Drew when I was growing up. I still do. And I used to watch the Nancy Drew Hardy Boys mysteries that would come on Sunday with Pamela Sue Martin as Nancy Drew. Then, but much later, in terms of like particularly with other authors, Sarah Dessen, who writes young adults. I really, really love her characters. They're girls. Most of her books, they're set in a subdivision or a suburb of down in North Carolina, a suburb of Durham, Raleigh, Durham. There's just something about those girls. They're very powerful, but they're really vulnerable at the same time. They're just regular middle-class girls that's just going through sort of tough things, just the challenges that are just teenage challenges. But they do it in such a way, or the characters themselves stand out in such a way that it resonates. At least with me, it really resonated with just how I felt when I was 15, 16, and 17 years old. So that was something that I thought, I really wanted to be able to capture that same thing with this particular girl, Celine Caldwell, who is not living in a small suburb outside of Raleigh or Durham. This is a teenager living inside of Manhattan. So it's a very different type of teenager with a different type of sensibility. So it's almost
scary when you start out with like almost a rivalry between her and her mother. I mean, you're like attacking the issues of that age group. So like,
right. Oh, her mother's tough. Her mother's really tough. I mean, there you have a mother. So on the one hand, you look at someone like Julia Caldwell and you're like, oh, that's so great. She's driven. She's got this fantastic job. She's world renowned as a curator. That's the type of woman that we normally would read about or see her on television. And we're like, ooh, I want to be just like her. I want to be her friend. I want to take her out for cocktails and just talk her up. But it's quite a different type of person when you have to live with somebody like that, when that person is younger.
And you deliver that so well. I have to say, I'm just so in love with you right now. Okay, so like the way, I mean, I'm seriously, I've only read it in 30 pages, but the way you interpret that through Celine's eyes of not only her own impression and experience of her mother and naturally, the way teens are with their parents, but also how the outside world sees her mother, Julia. And I mean, it was just like really, I mean, oh God, I can't wait to finish reading it. So, I cut you off. I don't want you to go into more about it because I haven't actually met her yet. But so it's so cool. But so let me ask you, were you inspired or influenced at all by like Dan Brown's books or the kind of art history books that are also set in Paris, set in museums?
Yeah. The Dan Brown books, I absolutely love them. And often when I've had to describe Southern Gothic to people, I often say it's like Gossip Girls meets the Da Vinci Codes, right?
There you go, right?
Because how often do you read a book like the Da Vinci Codes and you think you know what you're seeing? And it's something that we have seen all our lives, The Last Supper. And you think you know the fundamentals about who Jesus is and what that painting represents. And then he comes along and he gives you a completely different story that you never would have thought about at all.
And you don't want to believe it until like the end where you're like, well.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Well, how about like Hunger Games and the other young adult genres that are, how do you compete with not compete naturally? Probably wrote this book before those two, but how do you compare with that? How do you?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I
aspire to be in that.
I think okay. So I have not read The Hunger Games. I am aware of it. So I think at a very like simple level, I think that when you look at Katniss, who's a very strong, very self-driven girl, in the midst of all of that adversity, there's a connection that Celine has, that she finds out how strong she is, because she doesn't walk when you meet her. And Celine is very uncomfortable. She's not walking around beating her chest, with an S on it, right? She's not that type of person. When this adversity happens upon her, or she falls into it, and it's going to affect her entire life, she's like compelled to do it. So I think in that same respect, she's a lot like the lead character Katniss in the Hunger Games, because that character finds out how strong she really is. And this is not as though, she's sitting around thinking about, oh, I'm a really strong person, or I'm a strong girl. She finds out just how strong she is.
I am so excited to meet you. I love it, because usually, you meet someone who's written maybe one book, and they're really clever, everything is wonderful, but when you go here, it's very deep and long, and it's every bit of who you are. And just talking to you a little bit, I feel like I know so much about you. It's amazing.
Oh,
You're, what in your background made you, did you do, what did you do between the time that you graduated from school and the time that you really started working on this project? When you decided starting a publishing company, what other kind of background in work did you do?
Well, I spent years working in museums. So I've worked at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I'll tell you this story, and this will give you I was 23 years old, and I had to leave college because I just couldn't afford to keep going, not without having to take out student loans. And I was raised by my grandparents, so I knew they didn't have the money, and I didn't want them to be strapped with student loans. So I begged them to at least let me leave school for a year, and I would work. So I thought, so what kind of job can I have during the day where I can make a lot of money and it'd be legal? So I said this to my grandfather, and he said, oh, you need to go into the stock market, because that's the only way you're going to be able to make a lot of money. So long story short, I started working as a market reporter at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, then began working as a trader's assistant for 15 guys in the Euro-dollar pit and U.S. Treasury bills and foreign currency to make enough money.
Your grandfather is.
Right.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. So I ended up, after that, I went back to school, and this time I applied to Columbia University and got in, but I also got a part-time job working at this place in New York City in Harlem called Emmaus House of Harlem. So this was a place where people who were formerly homeless, they would go there. I actually started teaching GED classes and life skill classes there. So in those two worlds, I had gone from being at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, making a lot of money. That's all people talked about was money. Everything you did was about money, to being around people who had absolutely none. And so the experience of being there, I decided, because one weekend, the people that lived there, their children came to visit them. And so I never had put children in the face of homeless people. You just think about the adults that I did that you would see. And so when I saw that, I thought, there has to be a way that I could be able to help prevent those kids from meeting the same fate that their parents were in. So I went to the Met and proposed to do an art education program specifically for those kids whose parents were living at Emmaus House. And the person who was the head of their education department was like, you could do it. You can use our resources. meaning like come into the library, I can make copies and things like that. So I started doing that and would take like 15 kids down with me at a time to the Met and start taking them through the art museums. I mean, taking them through the galleries and talking about the paintings and what that means in their lives, trying to create a connection between, if you're looking at 14th century Italian paintings on a wall, how that does have some relevance to your life living in Harlem in 1998, right? I mean, not 1998, 1991, 1992. And so that's part of the reason why I started doing it, just in working with the Met in that way. And then I've worked for other art museums like the Art Institute and working as a curator, doing development work. So I've worked in a number of different areas in art museums, here in Chicago, New York, Paris at the Musée d'Orsay and the Louvre, in Berlin at the House of World Cultures.
You've worked there at those museums?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I've been to be there today, and I'm in the Louvre when I visited Paris in 1991. It was 20. It was crazy, but yeah, 1990. I don't know. But yeah, my husband and I, we were just dating at the time. We went to Paris and we went to all the museums. We've always been like museums since then, and have been to a lot of. My favorite thing to say is that I saw the Andy Warhol exhibit at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Paris, and I saw the French Impressionists at the Los Angeles Museum of Art. So it was like really kind of exposure.
That's awesome
there. But anyhow, so that's really, thank you so much for sharing so much of your background and taking me on a little journey of the highlights of how you came to be where you are now. Can I ask you, do you have family? Are you married? Do you have kids? What do they think of all of this?
I do. I have a husband, and then I have a 9.5-year-old little girl.
What a wonderful inspiration.
She's fantastic. We have a great time. She's part of the inspiration for Celine Caldwell. She's fantastic. We go. I mean, she and I go to museums a lot together. But she usually takes me on a tour. She usually gives me the education of being at the museum, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, awesome. Is she going to be with you when you come here?
Yes, she will. They both will. So you'll get to meet them.
Oh, good.
They're looking forward to meeting you. They can't wait.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, because you told me about ice age, and you know what? On Friday night, I'm going to see Tarzan, and then I get to the Legend of Tarzan, the new one, and I get to go to the touchdown film.
Oh my goodness!
I know.
Wait, this is the feature film Tarzan, the guy who played in True Blood as Tarzan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was saying the star. Yeah. I get to meet him. I'm really excited. So.
Oh my God.
I know. It's a lot of fun. It seems like whenever I start to get, I don't know. I really go with the flow. I'm really into mindfulness and listening to cues about life and what I do. And all of this. I mean, I work in a middle school. I have a family. My husband is, provides for us or whatever. So all of the stuff I do is for fun, as a hobby. I literally try not to make money doing it because I don't want to have the hassle of figuring all of that out. So once in a while, I'll do a couple things that will bring me some money, and then I just put it right back into it. So but now I'm kind of tired of doing that. I want to make money. So I want to make money producing things that I make, like my artwork and my videos and whatever. But as I do that, this is how social media works. You get more exposure, you get
Yeah.
get paid, but the experience of getting to do these things for me for free, even freaking going to a movie for free. I mean, movies are expensive. You know, if I take my husband and my kids, we're spending $100 by the time we buy popcorn and a drink to share. You know, it's ridiculous. So to me, it's so much fun, and I get a lot out of it. But honestly, I'm trying not to do this stuff. I can't resist. But it is, you know. Anyway, I would like to be spending more time writing, but you inspire me quite a bit, and I love the story. So I'd like to know what would you say? I'm going to ask you for Celine first and then for you, so you know. And it could be the same thing. But what is Celine's core value? What is in her? I don't know how far her span of her story goes in her life, but as this, what is she, 16, 17 years old? What's that most thing that she's most passionate about? And
you know, I think a lot. Honesty and loyalty are the two things that really, really drive her. And that's, I mean, and without
giving a natural thing. Is she aware of that, or is that just coming through?
I think, you know, you'll see that she wears it because that's what resonates with her. Without giving too much of the story away in regards to her mom, there's a lot of issues with the mom. There's a history between her and the mom where honesty and it becomes a challenge for the mother, and it has a really bad effect on Celine in terms of whether she can believe her mother, and that becomes particularly in that relationship, a driving force for her. So in regards to her friends, these are like Bahira, Sandy, Troy, and Reese. These are people that she can absolutely believe in because she knows whatever they say to her, they're not lying. You know, and that means a lot to her.
Wow. I can't want to think of that. Anything. Okay. What about you? What about you, Bridgette Alexander? What's your core?
You know, I would say some of it, I share some of that with Celine. Truth, honesty, loyalty. I mean, without going into like grave details of my childhood. I mean, I had a mother who was, you know, a professional person. She was like a head of a national organization for children and for reading. And in our community in Chicago, everyone loved her and respected her. But she was devastating to us inside the home. And so it was two different people. It was the person that you saw in the public sphere, and there was a monster that we had to live with for, you know, in private up until I was about 7. And I mean, she was in and out of my life for most of my childhood. It was just really, really difficult because, so, you know, this was a person that could tell you, I'll be right back. And you wouldn't see her for another 2 years.
Oh.
So for me, very, very early on, to be able to trust what someone says means absolutely everything to me. I don't care if you could have 2 horns growing out of your head and you could have like a bone going through your neck. But if I can trust you, if what you tell me is the truth, I don't care what it is, I'm okay with you because I know where I stand with you, because I know what it feels like to be on completely unstable grounds at a time in your life when all you have are just the adults that are around you, and you have nothing else. you know, you don't have your age and experience. You don't have any of those things yet. All you have is just the trust that these adults are going to be here and they're going to take care of me. And when that's not happening, and they're telling you, yes, I am, yes, I am, and they're telling the rest of the world, yes, I am, yes, and they're not doing that. You know, you know, so for me, that became paramount. And especially in light of like the relationship that I had with both my grandparents, where I had that type of relationship where if they said, you know, we're going to wake up at 8 a.m., you could set a clock to it because you literally were going to wake up at 8 a.m. When they said that I love you, I'm going to take care of you, you can trust me, you could absolutely do that. So for me, that's everything. Can you repeat? Ironically, they're my mother's parents, or they were. They've since passed on. They were my mother's parents. So yeah, my dad's parents they died, you know, much when I was really young. So yeah, so these were my maternal grandparents.
Well, that's good. I think that's important that it wasn't like a generational ongoing thing. They were able to care for you. So whatever happened with your mother was about her, not about anything that they did or they
Yeah, absolutely it was. Absolutely. Yeah. And I grew to understand that, you know, by the time I was a teenager, you know, that it's not something that I did. And, you know, and I also had, because I had the benefit of having this older generation there, my grandparents, so I could see, oh, it's not really about them either. It's about this person and what this person is doing, or maybe not doing. Right?
Thank you for sharing that with me. I'm trying to come in together and tell this woman everything about myself, but it really helps to understand, you know, how much is used in the story and how much we, as writers, share of ourselves in our characters and everything that we write. You know, there's a reason we believe what we believe and stand for what we stand for. And I think that truth and honesty and loyalty are wonderful attributes that you're sharing with your readers and with the generations to come. That's so funny. I'm so happy for you. It's after 7. I know it's a little late, but I think that we'll have a chance to talk some more.
Oh, I would love to. I would love to. This is fun.
I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you, but don't go away yet because we can talk a little bit more. But I just want to thank everybody for coming to Tinseltown tonight for this interview with Bridgette R Alexander. She's the author of Celine Gothic. It's a wonderful book, the young adult mystery. So, but if you came from a time when you liked Nancy Drew mystery and stories like that, she calls it the combination of what did you say, Gilmore Girls?
Gothic Girls meets the Da Vinci Codes.
Meets the Da Vinci Code, and it's just that. So it's so wonderful. Her art history and bringing her experience together to produce this, what is the first in the series that we'll be seeing. It's just really delightful. Thank you for being here. Thank you everybody for coming in. See you next Tuesday.
Thank you for having me. This has been great.